You say make approach as a constant activity. What do you mean by approach?
What I'm saying is don't wait for people to come to you. Start conversations. You know from hanging out with me, if we're in a cashier situation where I'm purchasing something from the cashier, whether it's the grocery or whether it's a restaurant, I'm always talking to people, getting to know people.
Except at Kroger where they don't talk to you.
Yeah, Kroger's pretty bad. I wrote a blog post about how bad customer service is at Kroger. I don't expect much from them. But if it's a higher end supermarket, a Whole Foods, we know our Whole Foods cashier. We know our Uber drivers. We make sure that we get to know them because you never, ever know. A lot of entrepreneurs are doing Uber on the side. They're coming up. They're out there working hard, doing what we're talking about. And it's good to have those connections.
We were riding Uber the other day and we met an entrepreneur. She had closed down her last business that we were aware of and she was starting something new. So we had a fun conversation with her on the way home the other day.
And the strange thing is I'd met her before doing that exact same thing. I'd met her at another event. I said, oh, and then I mentioned her name. I remember you. We met at this event. She'd had a clothing store, which is something that would have certainly come in handy for you had you been in the clothing game.
Yep.
But
years ago.
As a marketing consultant, business consultant, you've been through there. It's the kind of thing that maybe you could have gotten a client out of that. You never know. And that was just a general conversation that we had riding back from a business event.
In addition to making the approach a constant activity, you also have to make follow-up a constant activity. Because if you make a connection with somebody and then it just fizzles out, what's the point? You put all this work into meeting them and connecting with them and setting the foundation, and then it just kind of falls through. So you do have to have follow-up on your agenda to build these strong relationships.
Redpodcast.com/105. We were talking about the myth of good timing. I talked about timing and the most important skill. It's like a gym. You show up, you keep showing up, you keep working out. Relationships are the same way. It's not just a one-time thing. One email is not going to get you where you want to go. Just like being on Oprah, that's not going to get you a career. Might get you a few sales every once in a while, but what we're talking about is being consistent with your relationships, following up, sending emails that have value. If I see a news article that's of interest to somebody that I've connected with, I'm going to send it to them.
Yeah, don't send a mail merge.
Don't send the mail merge.
I have gotten that before. It's like the same message to everybody. It doesn't make you want to respond.
We met a guy at an event last year. This is something that surely he knows because everybody knows we're together. We do Red 3 times a week.
I don't know if everybody knows.
Everybody knows. We're like a power couple, man. You get the emails from him. I get the emails from him. And it's kind of a running joke. We're like, hey, did you get that follow-up email from Mr. X today?
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make you feel special.
It's
I'll
awful.
just say that.
Was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing great. Not really. He's thinking about us and everybody else he met at that event, probably.
Yep.
Twitter is really good. Twitter's really, really quick. That's one of the reasons that I suggest you, if you've got a question about Red Podcast, get to me via Twitter. Super quick. It's non-evasive. It's a good way to stay connected with people, and you could do maybe once a week. Nobody's going to think you're annoying. Email, fewer emails will probably get you better experience there. I like to send people books.
What kind of books?
Business books, something that's related. I don't just send crazy books.
You're kind of a crazy guy. You might be sending some crazy books.
No, I'm not going to send people like my philosophy. Sometimes I've had that happen where I'll get an email or I'll get a book in the mail and it's a certain religious philosophy that somebody is subscribing to. Hey, thought you'd like this. And it's like, yeah, that's a little bit evasive. But if it was something, for example, on podcasting, I'm going to look at a podcast book because I've got a podcast.
So why do you think that's powerful to send books?
Well, I think for entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs read. If that happens, you're sharing ideas and they're going to credit you for the idea that you basically sent to them in an Amazon box. But at the same time, if it's a book, if it's going on the shelf, it's kind of like wedding gifts. You and I got a lot of wedding gifts when we got married. Let's say we got a teapot or something. You say, oh, Aunt Jan got us that teapot. We just love pouring tea out of it. You're always thinking about her every time you see it. Book is the same way.
We don't have an Aunt Jan or a teapot, so.
Well, I'm making this stuff up. I don't want to insult anybody.
I like it. The way I like to stay connected with people is actually through talking with them. That is just my way to do things. Is if they're not in town, I like to schedule phone calls with them, not all the time, not every month, but just to keep up to date with them. Or if they're in town, meet them for coffee or something like this. And that to me really strengthens the business relationship more so than anything else because it's a direct one-on-one connection. And I think all the other things like Twitter and email and all that can lead up to that. But having that one-on-one is important to me.
Well, we're talking about building strong business relationships, working those relationships up the ladder. You're not meeting people for coffee right away.
It depends on the person.
All right, talk about that. How can somebody get 30 minutes, an hour of your time over coffee? What do they have to be doing?
I look at if somebody is working. What we talked about earlier, David, is that they have a business, they're working hard on that business, they're trying to rise up in that business and grow that business, and there's someone who has common interest. I'm always trying to grow my network of people, and when you meet somebody, you kind of have a gut feeling if there's someone you want to stay in contact with or someone that you don't. Usually I can tell from the very beginning when they tell me about their business, the way they tell me about their business. If I look at their business website and what they're doing online, generally I just get a good feeling like, yes, this person is somebody that I want to get to know, learn more about, yada, yada. And then you have those like, I don't know, this feels like a waste of time. And I just kind of have a feeling. Does that make sense?
A lot of this is intuition, yeah. And you see that on a show like Shark Tank. You see it on the podcast like Startup. Sometimes people get money, get the investment, get the interest based on who they are, not what they're doing.
Yes, I think for me, I've met some people that were doing really cool things, but we just didn't jive as people. We just didn't have anything really in common. So I look at that as a factor. If I meet somebody at a networking meeting or something like that, do I want to follow up with them? Are we going to have anything in common? Is that 1 hour or half hour coffee time going to be well spent? And you just get that feeling with people, you know.
You want a secret ninja trick for taking your business relationship to the next level?
Yeah, I do.
Holiday cards. This is huge. And I'm not talking about holiday cards that are like, Happy Holidays from Red Podcast, something like that. I'm talking about the same holiday card that you would send to our Aunt Jan that doesn't exist. I'm talking about Happy Holidays from David and Laurel with maybe a personal picture, nothing mentioning your business, just the kind of things that friends would do with each other. That brings people into that friendship fold, deepens that relationship so much more. It can still be a business connection, but it's saying to people, hey, I value you as a friend. This isn't just about me getting my name in front of you.
Or it could be saying, I stalked you online and found your address, and now I'm sending you this card. But either way, you
That's
put
what we
the
do
effort
with books. Yeah, we have all sorts of lumpy mail ideas. And if you get one, you're on the list. What we're talking about here is the ladder. I think the ladder works different ways. It's very similar to Jessica's conversation that you ask for a name, ask for a number, you ask somebody to coffee, then dinner. Then you start getting into business situations. But the ladder can go from Twitter to email. It can go from email to phone. It can go from phone to the in-person meetings like you're talking about, Laurel. It's working relationships up a ladder. And it's not to be manipulative. Let's be very clear about that. But it's doing it in such a way that everybody gets something from it. People, we've got these BS detectors. It's like you're talking about, Laurel. You like somebody just from being around them. You can tell that they're working. People know when you're trying to get something from them.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've been in the game for a while. It's like you get that BS detector, entrepreneur detector. It's fine-tuned. We know who's working. You have questions or comments? Reach out to us. How? Twitter. Go to redpodcast.com. You can find information on how to get Laurel, how to get me directly. You can also find these past episodes, including the episodes that we've talked about on this podcast, like episode number 79, the one that Jessica referred to at the very beginning of this episode. If you're listening on iTunes, we'd appreciate a review. That will help us to come up more frequently in the search engine results there. Also, if you could tell a friend, that's how we're growing the real entrepreneur development community. The bigger it is, the better we all do. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.